This is Steve Zeltzer with KPFA WorkWeek. I'm with Hank Chapot. He is activist with AFSCME 3299 at UC Berkeley. He's been working there many years. And we're going to talk about what is happening as far as privatization, outsourcing of the university and how that's affected the workers at AFSCME. Welcome. So, Hank, why don't you talk about the changes in the university over the years and how the university is contracting out and outsourcing the work that should be done by public workers?
Well, I could speak from my department, which is the grounds department. I've been there 16 years, and we have watched a steady attrition of full-time positions through injuries and retirements, and people are not getting replaced. And when we lost we had 4 people on our tree crew. We lost 3 of them. You can't have a guy up in a tree by himself. They started pulling gardeners to work with the tree crew, and now they're just hired Davy Tree Service and a number of other tree services, which is pretty typical of what's happening. A lot of the departments on campus run their own events, and so they hire outside catering companies, which are paying, rock bottom wages. They hire ticket takers up at the stadium and at the Haas Pavilion for basketball games. Those are all private corporations that are undercutting the service workers' salaries and also contributing to poverty in California because those people are making minimum wage. Now, Janet Napolitano last summer declared she was going to raise both current full-time employees of the university and the wages of the contract workers to $15 an hour. But that isn't a whole lot of people in-house. It is helpful for the people who are working for the contract companies, but we're working right alongside people that are coming from outside, are making 20, 30, 40% less than us, no benefits, eligible for public assistance. And we are in many ways, and I hear this in the custodial ranks and in the food service ranks, training our replacements.
And this idea that the university, which is a public university, is contracting out, and these workers that they've contracted out are having to go on subsidies, government subsidies, because they're not paid enough. Well, what does that mean?
Well, it contributes to poverty in our neighborhoods and in our cities, and it also taps the public wealth that we contribute to the government because the money has to turn around and go out in food stamps or health clinics that are low cost health clinics, and sicker people, more food insecurity. So the University of California basically is desperate to balance its books, but they're balancing it on the backs of the working class people who serve the students their food, do the clerical work, do the patient care, and do keep the classrooms clean and safe and keep the grounds clean and uncluttered. And so in all, they're trading on the backs of the working class in order to pump up the university and pay their $500,000 and $1 million salaries.
And let's talk about that, because one of the issues of the most recent chancellor at UC Berkeley was that he built apparently a fence for $700,000. What's that all about? I mean, why do you need a fence like that?
Well, it's funny. He also built an escape hatch in California Hall. Some of the chancellors, I've been through 3 or 4, and with AFSCME, we've been in their face occasionally. Some of them come out and talk to us and address us face to face, and some of them get escorted out of the room with armed guards around them. And I think Chancellor Dirks is that second kind, who's afraid of the workforce and afraid of the students. I think I can't prove it, it's rumor, but I think it was partially his wife was very upset. She's living in a university house, and students got up on the front porch because there wasn't an iron fence, and I think they broke a lamp or a lantern, an outdoor lantern or something, during the Occupy era, which was pretty rowdy on campus. I'm not sure Dirks was even here then. Burgeono, I think, was still the chancellor, but the Dirks is. I used to see him walking from University House to California Hall, but now he drives. So I think they're afraid of the students and the workforce, and they're afraid to get down. I mean, we've had pepper spray at the Regents meetings, have had.
Well, the police apparatus, the militarization of these campuses, not just UC, but CSU. I mean, it seems like there's a large amount of maybe unlimited funding for military, for police. What is going on as far as the militarization of these campuses?
Well, they do have the best equipment on campus, better than the gardeners, and the police don't really have that bad of a job. I mean, they're on a fairly limited space. They don't go out into the streets. They deal with students who are young people, and they, I think their worst problems are Friday night and Saturday night around Fraternity Row. And I've also had a lot of trouble, like I reported to the East Bay Express. We were cleaning up the turnouts on Grizzly Peak Boulevard, the scenic turnouts, and people were building little campfires up there on, late at night on a Saturday when they're partying, because it's really party central. I couldn't even get the police to take a report. So I did have an article in East Bay Express, but they're still having campfires up there. We have homeless people sleeping under the bridges in Strawberry Creek, and the police don't deal with them. As recently, they said, no more off-leash dogs on campus. And I wrote a comment on the Daily Cal that said, well, if they can't deal with the homeless community on campus, if they can't deal with the skateboarders or the people riding through their dismount zones, I don't think they're going to be chasing people for having their dogs off leash, and that's proven to be correct. The police, when there's an event, like something happens terrible, a terrorist event in Europe, they'll stand out on the steps of Cesar Chavez, but I don't think they're the most dedicated and well-trained force. But they will come in, we saw during the Occupy period, they came in with billy clubs.
And the Regents, I mean, who are we talking about? These are businessmen, and I understand there's not even one educator on the Regents. There is no labor representative. There used to be Jack Hanning, who was head of the state AFL-CIO, was a labor representative, and Dolores Huerta was the last one under Gray Davis, and when her term expired, nobody was replaced them. Do you think there should be a labor voice on the Board of Regents? And what do you think about the corporatization and the billionaires basically taking over the Board of Regents?
Well, it's a much bigger question than just the board. They're hiring Wall Street types and business managers to run the university like a business. They're trying to turn a profit. I know they're also trying to chase down the debt, but they tend to put money in one pocket and take it out of another pocket, and they keep money sequestered. They have a huge endowment, but they're claiming, we have to lay. Just 6 months ago, they announced 500 layoffs of workers I think at Berkeley. It was Dirks' announcement. So the fact that the regents are all corporate types like Richard Blum and businessmen and real estate interests, they're all, because the university is a huge cash generator. It generates jobs. It generates a lot of money, third largest employer in the state. So I think they look at it and see it's like a golden goose, but they're also not doing it. I always tell people that the university used to be run by talented academics who worked their way up from, professor to dean or to heading a department head, and then they'd work up to chair, and then they'd get appointed as a vice chancellor, and they really knew what the best interests of the school, the students, and the educational mission were. And now the people who are running all the departments are just money market people who are sucking down huge amounts of money. They probably have stock, invested. The university's tapping its patent mill pretty heavily. And I've noticed they also stopped calling it an education and research university. They call it the best research university in the West because the undergraduate education is suffering. They're still doing a lot of research, and they are sucking down a lot of patents. They make you sign a form when you come to work there that you will give the patent to the regents. So I believe that the university, it's in trouble. I think it's one institution, like many in the United States, that are becoming ungovernable because they're so large. They have so many details. They tried lumping everything together, like this shared services program, which costs millions of dollars, and didn't provide the savings that they expected. And then 10 years from now, they'll split everything apart, and they'll let every campus do their own thing. And people keep coming in with new ideas, the management types, new ideas on how to fix this thing, and they stay for 2 years or 4 years, and they try something. They try something out of the business world, and sometimes it works, and most of the time it's just, we kind of run our wheels into the ground.
Well, there was an attempted merger with University of California, San Francisco, and Stanford. They were going to merge those campuses. It ended up costing $250 million, and it was a failed merger. I mean, so who's paying for this?
Well, that's when I say they put money in one pocket and take it out of another pocket. They have it sequestered. So let's say these are operating funds, these are research grants, these are endowments, these are private donors, the Silicon Valley types and banker types. And then they say, well, we can't hire any more workers because we don't have any money, but we have a huge multi-billion-dollar endowment for the university. I think these problems, they just abandoned the Richmond Global Campus. That was, I guess, Dirk's. I think he inherited it, but he made it his baby. I don't know how many millions of dollars they spent on planning and designs and meetings. They did a lot of outreach in Richmond, which I appreciate. I'm glad they did. But the Richmond residents demanded that they have a say in how the thing is built and who works there.
Including union wages
union wages and local hire and all these things that are extremely important in a city like Richmond. Because you look what they did in Mission Bay. They just kind of landed like a spaceship, and the burden on the neighborhoods. I was raised on Potrero Hill. The traffic and housing costs that Mission Bay created. It was nothing but an empty.
Well, they built a children's hospital there, and apparently the chancellor at UCSF actually agreed that they should build a coliseum right next to a hospital, children's hospital. What kind of thinking is that by the university management? I know that there's also a Kaiser there. People can barely get around as it is, and to build another coliseum next to these hospitals?
Well, I know they're exploiting the southern waterfront. The city is using the southern waterfront to increase property taxes, and there are neighbors, and there is an organized effort to block the basketball arena because of that reason. If your wife is pregnant or you are pregnant and you want to get to your hospital to deliver your baby, or if your ambulance comes and can't get through the sports traffic because there's already the Giants Stadium, what do you do? Take a streetcar to the hospital so that you can have your wounds, repaired? What if you're in a horrible accident? They do have, I think, a couple of helicopter landing pads, but how do you get a helicopter down on, 5th and Market where a bicyclist gets run over? So it's poor planning, but it is, I think, really designed to enhance the bottom line of city taxes, and also to enhance the prestige of the people that run it and manage it. And I think sports stadiums are one of the biggest boondoggles that America has ever come up with.
Well, this whole issue of property development, a lot of construction has been going on at UC Berkeley, billions, and the stadium there, they're spending a lot of money. It seems like, why should that money start to go to the staff and the workers at the university?
Well, I call it the Winchester Mystery Campus because everywhere you go, there's building. I wouldn't send my kid there because there's so many construction trucks. There's so many trenches and holes in the ground. There's construction fences all over. There's construction cranes up in the air. They're constantly building new buildings. They just finished off a brand new Eshelman Hall. But I was on TV a couple of weeks ago complaining about Edwards Track, where there's chunks of concrete falling out of the sky. And they said, oh, well, we can't fix that. That's not an academic building. So they put up netting to catch the concrete chunks that fall. And it's one of the worst poorest earthquake-rated buildings on campus. To their I guess, one thing I'm happy about is they moved the entire grounds department out of Edwards Track, and I'm not sure if the grounds is going back. But the university, like I said, they're building a brand new aquatic center down there that's opening really soon, and they still have dangerous buildings on campus that they're not dealing with. And so, yeah.
Well, this is a health and safety issue, but also isn't it a property development? I mean, that the whole regions and the property expansion, making money, selling off property. They sold off the campus, Laguna campus, which used to be a university, to private development. This seems to be a trend at the University of California where they are endeavoring to make public property profitable for their investments.
Well, I believe that they're a land-grant university, which means that all this land was given to them 140 years ago when the University of California was founded, and part of their mission was to return knowledge and education to the citizens of California. And so if they're turning into real estate developers, they got some very, very valuable land, and they're buying and trading and selling it at the same time that workers are watching their wages stay flat. Our pension contributions went up. Our medical costs contributions went up.
And is that cost shifting? Wasn't Blum in charge of the pension, part of the pension system in UC?
Oh, I'm not sure if Richard Blum is in charge of it, but it was during our negotiations with both units of AFSCME, the patient care and service workers, that unfortunately the bargaining team gave the university the increase in pension contributions.
Wasn't somebody fired because of that? Craig Mirrlees?
Oh, he wasn't asked me, was he?
Yes, he was. He was the director of AFSCME at that time.
It's one funny thing about I'm not speaking for AFSCME here. I'm a member, and I've been.
You're a rank and file member.
Yeah, I've been an active member. I've become less active the last year or two because it becomes almost meaningless. Besides contract negotiations, we had labor management meetings every 3 or 4 months, and management would sit across the table with blank looks on their face. They wouldn't even say, "Oh, we'll get back to you on that." They would just take notes, and people would come in, mostly custodians, because that's the largest piece of our workforce, come in with complaints about health and safety, about working alone all night in buildings, women custodians, of standing alongside their replacements, training workers from ABM or Total Works or any one of dozens of contractors. So the pensions across the country are in some trouble, but I think it's mismanagement. UC used to manage their pension in-house, and 10 or 12 years ago they handed it over to Wall Street, which has taken billions in fees and hasn't returned the promise. They said, I don't know, something like 6-7.5% annual growth in the pension system, and it's at 1.5 to 3%.
You have people like Richard Blum, whose wife is Dianne Feinstein, who actually has investments, has diverted money from the university pension plan into his investments. You think these people should be criminally prosecuted? I mean, they're profiting personally from the university and the investments of the university.
Well, I know that they'll say, "Oh, well, it's not a conflict of interest," but the rules are the appearance of a conflict of interest. So it's pretty obvious that it appears to be a conflict of interest, or it wouldn't make it to the front pages of the headlines. I think I'm not sure who's in a position to prosecute them.
The Attorney General of California.
I know, but Kamala Harris is a friend of the Blums. I'm sure she runs around.
But it could be raised by the unions. I mean, you have a situation at UC San Francisco where the chancellor there actually is on the boards of companies that contract business with the UC San Francisco.
And that's a direct conflict of interest, although he claims he's got a hands-off relationship.
Well, I mean, do you think the union should say, we want criminal prosecution? Why are you on two boards that have private contracts with the university, and you're getting $500,000, $600,000 a year?
Of course, I believe AFSCME is walking the halls of Sacramento looking for somebody because...
No, but you could demand that Kamala Harris criminally prosecute these people, couldn't you?
I think they probably have gone to Harris and said, let's criminally prosecute these people. Thank you.
I haven't heard lately.
No, I haven't heard either, but I do believe that, the fix is in for the wealthy and the rich people that run this state. Mostly all Democrats are completely, absolving themselves of any crimes before they before the crime even gets a hearing. And sometimes you'll see the local press. Sacramento Bee occasionally does a good job, like they went after Linda Katehi at Davis, and some people thought it was a hatchet job, but other people said that she, by sitting on these boards and publishing house and some, for-profit universities, she was just, padding her income, and she'd go to one or two, weekend conferences a year, and still they'd give her hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it is a conflict of interest, and there's nobody watching the store.
And this issue of privatization, not just of UC, but of all public services, there has not been a campaign by the organized labor movement uniting all unions. I mean, you've got a bunch of unions at UC. You have a lot of public worker unions in California. Why hasn't there been a campaign against privatization of all public services, not just education?
Well, I think there has, but it's been piecemeal, and it's not one big effort. AFSCME has brought in 50 or 70 contract workers. It took a long time and a lot of struggle to get the university to admit these people have been working for the university alongside people who are full-time workers, employees of the university working alongside.
You're doing the same work.
Yeah,
They were doing the same
work, and they were getting paid $11 an hour or something like that. While the custodians, some of them make $16, $18 an hour. And so, but the problem with that is while AFSCME was going to bat for these contract workers, which is good, it's important to bring them in-house, we were losing positions right and left. And so we probably lost as many as we gained just by, like I said, attrition, injuries, health issues, and retirement, early retirements. The university every once in a while will offer a buyout for long-term employees because they're more expensive, and their healthcare. As we get older, our healthcare costs increase, and so the university periodically say, well, and it's funny because I don't know if you know this. If you make more than like 140 grand, they'll give you 1 month of severance for every 1 year of service to the university. If you make under 140 grand, they'll give you 1 week of severance for every year of service. And so, if I retired, I'd get 16 weeks of pay. But if one of the managers in the physical plant who makes $150,000, $200,000, if he retired, he'd get a month's pay for every service.
So it's a class system, you're saying?
Pretty much. They tend to defend themselves, and they always say we have to pay the best money to get the best people, but I really am not seeing it. I see a lot of paper pushers, a lot of people that go to meetings and then schedule more meetings. They come out with big fat files of paperwork, and you look at people's offices, and I'm familiar with the physical plant, which is now it's called real estate services. Everybody's desk is piled, 10 manila folders high with huge fat packets from the last meeting they went to, and things don't change that much. Grounds department is a grounds department.
But you also had injuries. A guy fell from a ladder at the International House. Why don't you talk about that incident?
Well, that was a death from a scissors lift. The guy hadn't been trained regularly. I think he'd been shown how to use it once, and I think he had the outriggers in backwards, and so and they sent him up to clean the windows in the auditorium of the I House, and so he had it extended all the way, and it just tipped over. Gabriel, I've forgotten his name. They did pay some money to his family. They avoided a lawsuit. They they settled on his death, and the Labor Relations Board finds fault with UC regularly. They find.
But any of these supervisors, are they punished? I know there was a professor at UCLA who actually got criminally prosecuted because of the death of a lab assistant because of improper health and safety protection.
Yeah, I believe he didn't end up criminally prosecuted. I think the DA settled with him. But that was a horrible incident of a young woman, a lab assistant, and she caught fire because the chemical she was using spilled out of a pipette, and when it hit oxygen, it went in flames. And she wasn't wearing a lab coat, I think. They weren't providing them, or they were mandating them lab protection clothing. And she ran the wrong direction from the shower, the eye wash station where you can wash your stuff off, and was burned horribly and died a couple of weeks later. And I think the same thing. There was talk of him being prosecuted for lax safety in the laboratory and not mandating. It's a funny thing because we have a lot of safety equipment in the grounds department, but it's difficult to get some people to use it. And so the supervisors have to follow them around and say, put on your ear protection, put on your eye protection, wear your gloves, where's your steel-toed boots and stuff, because some people, especially younger people, don't really worry as much, and they don't realize that if you don't wear a dust mask, you're going to, harm your lungs over 20 years. And so it's not all on the managers, but the managers really need to keep on this health and safety stuff. There's another issue I think you need to go to is the University of California here at Berkeley. Since they opened the new Eshelman Hall student building next to Cesar Chavez and Martin Luther King buildings. They remodeled that whole area, remodeled the whole plaza. They've opened 6 or 8 new restaurants on campus, and none of them are housing and dining. They're all private. They're all low-paid barista types, and we're losing positions in housing and dining, and the students, are paying Starbucks prices for their coffee cup in the morning.
So it's further privatization of the university.
Yeah, well, there was a restaurant called Ramona's up in I'm not sure which building, maybe back to up near Kroger Plaza. Ramona's has got now supposedly some 4-star chef running a cafe there, and he's hired, temp young workers who are not getting paid well, don't have any benefits, and it used to be staffed by full-time employees. We want when AFSCME argues about full-time employees bringing contracted workers in, we want our pay and benefit package to be the floor, not the ceiling. Like if people say, "Oh, well, you're at UC," and occasionally AFSCME tends to protect our little turf and not, be as outgoing toward the toward the contract workers. But if our custodians are making $16, $18 an hour, then we want all custodians to make $16, $18.
So equal pay for equal work.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what AFSCME's been demanding. But we're watching our positions, our full-time employee positions, slowly erode, and they're not being replaced. They're being replaced by contract workers.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and we're glad we were able to get this extensive information about what's happening at UC Berkeley. So thanks.
Okay, thank you.